Okay, right now, Houston, the voltage is looking good. And we had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning there. Indiana, we're starting to go ahead and button up the tunnel again. Houston, we'd like you to attempt to reconnect fuel cell 1 to main A and fuel cell 3 to main B. Verify that quad delta is open. Zip on the flows.
Dum 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 dum.
Jack, don't worry, Mom. I saw it on TV.
See? It's okay. You saw it on the television.
That power of that fucking gravity. Let's talk about gravity. The gravity of lies. The gravity of lies. This is the gravity of lies.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can...
Are you out of your fucking mind?
We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
So did I accidentally ask a deeper question than I meant to?
Yeah, no, you were meant to ask deep questions.
Apparently I was.
In life. So to say, what is it? I think Einstein, in an Einsteinian answer, we would say gravity is the curvature of space and time. And objects will follow the curvature of space-time, and we interpret that as a force of gravity. That's probably the best answer I can give to a what is gravity question, or why is there gravity. That's the best I can do there. I think that's a good start. And I can also say that Einstein noted that matter tells space how to curve. Space tells matter how to move.
Say that again.
Isn't that beautiful?
It is. No, I want to get that. I like that.
So,
That's a t-shirt.
matter and energy will curve the fabric of space.
Okay.
And it's that curvature that tells other matter how to move in the curvature of space itself. And so Einstein juxtaposed those in a poetic phrase where he said, matter tells space how to curve. Space did I get that right? Yes. Matter
I wouldn't
Matter
know.
tells space how to curve. Space tells matter how to move. It's beautiful.
I figured out the message. One word. You know what it is?
It's gravity.
It was gravity.
Gravitational anomaly.
The first gravitational anomalies changed everything. Suddenly we knew that harnessing gravity was real.
We're NASA.
NASA. NASA.
We're NASA.
NASA. The same NASA you flew for.
A group of social criminals, these people in the space program. Nassholes, I call them.
that vacuum chest your face to get a bad case of rosacea. Don't question Moses' mind.
Why, guy, eh? And you like
your
that?
eyes, we call that nasoplastia.
I'm real happy that you're excited about gravity.
The problem is gravity.
I would have solved the problem of gravity.
He's been trying to solve the gravity equation for 40 years.
The equation couldn't reconcile relativity with quantum mechanics.
2 years to Saturn. They'll be coming up on Saturn.
Currently orbiting Saturn.
Out near Saturn, a disturbance of space-time.
Guys, looks like we'll be approaching the wormhole in about 3 hours.
A wormhole?
That's the wormhole. So a wormhole bends space like this, so you can take a shortcut through a higher dimension.
It's a sphere.
Well, of course it is. What you thought it would just be a hole. What's a circle in 3 dimensions? Sphere. If a black hole is an oyster, then the singularity is the pearl inside. The gravity's so strong, it's always hidden in darkness.
Singularity. Yeah, we'd solve gravity.
The tidal gravity is so quick that something crossing the horizon fast is what we call a gentle singularity.
Oh, we have to shed the weight to escape the gravity. Push us out of the black hole's gravity.
And the black hole that big has a huge gravitational pull.
And here's a picture of fucking a duck's nose. Black holes and stuff, black holes and stuff. And here's a picture of fucking a duck's nose. Black holes and stuff, black holes and stuff.
Get sucked right into that black hole.
The gravity on that planet will slow our clock compared to Earth's drastically.
Every hour we spend on that planet will be 7 years back on Earth. That's relativity, folks.
But you knew about relativity.
Oh, neither one of us have time to worry about relativity right now, Dr. Brennan.
Time is relative, okay? It can stretch and it can squeeze, but it can't run backwards.
I could use the time to research gravity.
The only thing that can move across dimensions like time is gravity.
To escape the gravity. The turbulence in the gravity is increasing. Gravity can cross the dimensions, including time.
Apparently.
Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space.
Evolution has yet to transcend that simple barrier.
Accident is the first building block of evolution, but when you're orbiting a black hole, not enough can happen. It sucks in asteroids and comets, other events which would otherwise reach you.
Do you have the quantum data?
But something sent you here. They chose you. Well, who's they? They.
And whoever they are, they appear to be looking out for us.
Who's they?
They chose me. The beings that led us here. They communicate through gravity, right?
Yes.
What if they chose me?
It's not a ghost. It's gravity.
I think we've underestimated the life on this planet. The people have so much courage. Here they are hurling through space on a molten rock at 67,000 miles an hour, and the only thing that keeps them from flying out of their shoes is their misplaced faith in gravity.
Their misplaced faith in gravity. Their misplaced faith in gravity. Their misplaced faith in gravity. Their misplaced faith in gravity.
The
people on this planet will swallow anything.
So hey guys, Jeff here again. And unless you were in a coma or you're living under a rock, you heard the news today that scientists have finally detected gravitational waves and have proven Einstein right once and for all. Every single Zionist-owned news outlet has reported this bullshit throughout the day. The propaganda machine is working overtime right now. First, you got Reuters and the Associated Press. They wouldn't stop reporting this for the last 24 hours. Then you got Washington Post, you got the Wall Street Journal, you got CNN, you got BBC News, you got Fox News, you got MSNBC. MSNBC and Fox News reporting the same propaganda. That's because they're owned and operated by the same people with the same agendas. Don't get fooled by that whole conservative liberal crap. NBC News, The Telegraph, Al Jazeera, CBS News, ABC News, Discovery News, Newsweek, Gawker, Futurism, even Neil deGrasse Tyson got in on the action today. Then you got Science Alert. I fucking love science. Even Albert Einstein himself reported on the amazing achievement of detecting gravitational waves. The propaganda machine was in full force today, and this is simply a reaction to the Flat Earth movement. This is a reaction to all the videos up on YouTube explaining how gravity doesn't exist. Gravity is a theory, an unproven theory thought up by an occultist to explain away everything that doesn't make sense on living on a spinning ball. Like why you're sticking to the bottom of it but feel upright, and why you don't feel the spin, and why you don't fall off this magical ball. Gravity was invented to explain away all common sense, to explain away everything that makes no sense on a spinning ball Earth. Okay? Even Einstein knew his whole theory of relativity was a bunch of bullshit. If the facts don't fit the theory, change the facts. That's exactly how Einstein operated. These people are in serious damage control mode. Serious damage control mode. Let's take a look at this quote from Stephen Hawking so we can understand why gravity is so important to them. Because every lie in the scientific community, or I should say the pseudo-scientific community, every lie has one agenda, and this is what it comes down to. Look at this quote. Because there is a... hold on, let me do it in the Stephen Hawking voice. Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Is the agenda becoming more clear? All the lies that come out of the scientific community all serve one agenda, and that's removing God from creation. Okay? Gravity is the false god of this false science. They credit gravity for everything. And gravity is magical. Gravity can do so many things. Gravity can make you stick to the ball. Gravity can make you orbit the ball. Gravity can make you feel upright at all times. Even when you're on the side of the ball or underneath it, you always feel like you're on top because of gravity and relativity. Throw away all common sense and ignore all your senses and trust their magical theory of gravity and their magical theory of relativity. You got theory on top of theory on top of theory to explain away another theory. This is not how science works. The scientific method has been thrown out the window. There is nothing scientific about that. Don't believe all this hype. Don't believe all this garbage that they've detected gravitational waves. This is pure propaganda.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have detected gravitational waves. We did it. I am so pleased to be able to tell you that.
Tremendously exciting news. Gravitational waves have finally been detected. Here's a brief explanation. Back in 1915, Albert Einstein gave the world his new theory of gravity, the general theory of relativity, which is based on the beautiful idea that gravity is nothing but warps and curves in the fabric of space-time. Now, barely a year later, Einstein pushed this idea one vital step further. You see, he realized that if space is flexible enough to warp, then it should also be able to ripple, to vibrate, to undulate. And that would mean that if something were to jostle the fabric of space-time, it should send out ripples in the fabric of space, and it's those ripples that we now call gravitational waves. This is what the theory says should happen. Now, how do you test this idea? Well, the math shows that as a gravitational wave rolls by, it will squeeze and stretch anything in its path. You see it happening here for the Earth, but of course, this is highly exaggerated so you can see the effect. When you do the calculation, you find that the amount of squeezing and stretching would be tiny, a mere fraction of an atomic diameter, and that makes it pretty difficult to detect. But that is what the LIGO team has now achieved. And they did it with two detectors, one in Louisiana, the other in Washington State. And in these detectors, what they do is they fire laser beams along two 4-kilometer-long evacuated tunnels. And when the light recombines, it creates an iconic pattern. It's known as an interference pattern. But the only thing that you need to grasp is that were a gravitational wave to roll by, it would squeeze and stretch the arms of the detector, and that would have a measurable impact on that interference pattern, causing it to shift. And they did it with two detectors, one in Louisiana, the other in Washington State. And in these detectors, what they do is they fire laser beams along two 4-kilometer-long evacuated tunnels. And when the light recombines, it creates an iconic pattern. It's known as an interference pattern.
We are trying to measure things basically at 1/1000th the diameter of a proton. That's the size of the signal that you see on Earth from those.
It seemed like any other morning, but on February 28, 2001, at 10:54 a.m., a tremor began to shake Seattle.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Fortunately, when it was over, there was just one death indirectly attributed to the quake. Only a few were seriously injured. The city itself escaped major destruction. Scientists know that the 2001 earthquake was caused by a rupture in the Earth's crust. But there's another, more dangerous fault line running right beneath the city's streets.
We have a big fault that runs right underneath downtown Seattle. And we know it's there, and we know it's active.
The giant masses of rock that meet at the fault are unstable. They're prone to sudden and violent shifts that cause earthquakes.
Well, the math shows that as a gravitational wave rolls by, it will squeeze and stretch anything in its path. You see it happening here for the Earth, but of course, this is highly exaggerated so you can see the effect. When you do the calculation, you find that the amount of squeezing and stretching would be tiny, a mere fraction of an atomic diameter, and that makes it pretty difficult to detect. But that is what the LIGO team has now achieved.
Hey, Dr. D. Hi, guys. Good to see you here in San Francisco, California. I understand from the email that you want to know more about earthquake waves. Yes. I put together some demonstrations for you. Great. Let's talk about 3 different kinds of waves. The first 2 are S and P waves. They're called body waves, but they travel through the body of the Earth.
Mr. Lyle showed the other treehouse detective, those on the seismogram.
Let me show you with this slinky over here.
Those don't look like the waves I'm used to seeing, like ocean waves.
The wave you're used to seeing has up and down or side-to-side motion. This is like the shear wave or S wave. Looks like this. Another important difference between S and P waves is that P waves travel faster than S waves, almost twice as fast.
I guess that means that P waves will always arrive first.
That's right, and the difference in time between the arrival of the S and P waves help us find the epicenter of the earthquake. Well, P stands for primary or compressional waves, and S is for secondary or shear waves. P waves make the Earth vibrate back and forth along the direction of motion.
This is highly exaggerated so you can see the effect. When you do the calculation, you find that the amount of squeezing and stretching would be tiny, a mere fraction of an atomic diameter, and that makes it pretty difficult to detect. But that is what the LIGO team has now achieved. And they did it with two detectors, one in Louisiana, the other in Washington State.
They were detected. All right, and you're looking, the black holes are the black things in the middle, and you're looking at the stars behind them. By the way, this is not a Hollywood production that I'm going to show you. It is actually a real computer simulation.
Bang, giving birth to an endless expanding existence of time, space, and matter. Now see further than we've ever imagined, beyond the limits of our existence, in a place we call the universe.
And so now when I take my planet and I move it through this distorted space-time, it tries to follow a straight line. And so instead what it winds up doing is it winds up moving around the central object on an orbit. It's that effect of that curved space-time that we usually call gravity.
Yeah.
You see it happening here for the Earth. You see it happening here for the Earth.
Sure.
Today, LIGO, or the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, announced that they found the galactic Kerplunk by detecting or hearing one of the ripples. Shh, listen.
Yeah.
Well, imagine that this here is space.
Yeah.
Where do you get this? This is my old bike shorts.
Yeah.
So here I have my representation of the universe.
Yeah.
Like this ping pong ball here is basically one of us, just humans. Change it only a little bit.
Porn? What's... Oh, pornography?
Shh, listen. Gravitational waves! Gravitational waves!
What we've started to be able to do is to listen to the gravitational history of our universe.
Music to my ears.
And two black holes merging, colliding, as we saw today, is gravity in its strongest form.
And here's a picture of fucking a duck's nose. black holes and stuff, black holes and stuff. And here's a picture of fucking a duck's nose. Black holes and stuff, black holes and stuff.
So gravity, we totally see its effects all the time. Oh shit. Now scientists are truly understanding gravity for the first time. A warping of space-time, which was once thought to be impossible, has been generated by the collision of two black holes more than 1 billion light years from Earth.
Yeah, baby.
The collision of those two black holes radiated 3 times the mass of the sun in pure gravitational energy.
But there's just one small catch. It is all just a theory, so we don't know whether gravitons actually exist or whether they're a myth. However, mathematically gravitons can exist, and so there you have it, the very, very basics of quantum gravity.
It's the brightest bud.
You see it happening here for the Earth. The first direct detection of gravitational waves. And this is big.
Now when I take my planet,
you see it happening here.
Today, LIGO, or the laser...
Two black holes merging.
Oh shit.
Burning papers into ashes. What a season.
Wait for the drop.
I'm sorry, the drop?
1.3 billion years ago, in a galaxy far, far away, two black holes merged. As they violently spiraled into each other, energy released in these waves was 50 times greater than the energy being released by everything else in the observable universe combined.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
After spreading out through the universe at the speed of light for over 1 billion years,
shut your fucking anus.
And squeezed space such that two light beams traveling in perpendicular pipes were put slightly out of step, allowing humans to detect the existence of gravitational waves for the first time.
Sure.
That's it?
Yeah. Yeah, baby.
The main problem with detecting gravitational waves is that they're tiny. They stretch and squeeze space by just 1 part in 10 to the 21. That's the equivalent of measuring the distance between here and Alpha Centauri, and then trying to measure variations in that distance that are the width of a human hair.
Oh, okay. I got you, brother.
Now here's something most people don't think about, which is that gravitational waves stretch space-time. So light traveling through that space should be stretched as well. If everything is stretching, how do you know anything is stretching?
How do you know anything is stretching? That's the conundrum. It doesn't make any sense. This whole thing is bogus. Shut it down. However, the gravitational wave, when it comes through, it's doing this slow thing, like this noise I made, which is low. It's a slow stretching. It's only 100 times per second. And it's true, when the wave comes through...
Right, yeah. So what was needed to detect gravitational waves? Well, a megawatt of laser power to minimize shot noise of exactly 1 wavelength, because we're trying to measure just 1/trillionth of that wavelength. Continually inserted to replace older light that's been stretched and squished in the world's 2nd largest vacuum chamber at just 1/trillionth of atmospheric pressure, hitting the smoothest mirrors ever created, suspended by silica threads, at 2 distant sites to eliminate noise, with 4-kilometer-long arms to increase the magnitude of gravitational waves to just 1,000th of the width of a proton.
Sure.
Your Honor.
Take it down, man.
This is heavy duty, Doc. This is great. Whoa, wait a minute, Doc. Are you trying to tell me that my mother has got the hots for me?
Precisely.
Whoa, this is heavy.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
What?
The justice system works swiftly in the future now that they've abolished all lawyers.
Oh, this is heavy. Oh, this is heavy. Oh, this is heavy, Doc. I mean, it's like I was just here yesterday.
You were here yesterday, Marty. You were. Remember, your mother is at that exact same dance with you. Yeah.
Right. This could get heavy, Doc.
Heavy, heavy. 1885. Amazing. I actually end up as a blacksmith in the Old West.
Pretty heavy, huh?
So, may not be my name that's supposed to end up on this tombstone. It may be yours.
Great Scott.
I know, this is heavy.
Welcome. I just want to take an opportunity to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you're at. This is VP. I am bringing you this information in hopes that it touches enough people and gets enough people asking questions that they can push the research that I've already done a little bit further. The fundamentally important thing about flat Earth goes way beyond the shape of where we live. If indeed a deception is able to be set forward and have so many people believe it, the reason behind that deception is really the most important thing. And I think fundamentally that's what got a lot of people asking, why would they lie about the shape of where we live? What would be important enough to continue on a charade? It is my hope that the theory that I've been working on for 4 years helps to shed some kind of light on that, helps some people begin to see what indeed it could be. There is absolutely no point in us fighting among ourselves. The problem with disseminating information, especially when you disseminate it incorrectly, is that once people take hold of it, and then some of those people begin to question it, whoever started that information is rarely the one being questioned. Instead, what we find is we find a population of people who end up fighting among themselves. When the entire point here is the truth. Whether you believe in globe Earth, flat Earth, concave Earth, hollow Earth, it don't matter. The point here is that at least enough people are asking questions. It's that pursuit of knowledge that we're all after. It's only in the pursuit of knowledge that we are going to have any kind of hope in figuring out what it really is. The minute we stop questioning, that's when we're all in trouble. So you can hate on us however you want. You can call us all the names in the world. It's not going to stop anything. Zero. We're going to keep on inquiring. We're going to keep on searching out the facts. And we do that for the best of all of us. Because Lord forbid, those who believe in the globe should be proven wrong. I want to see it when you sit down in your chair and the revelation cross your mind and you've finally been proved wrong of everything I thought was incorrect. Before you ever get there, there's been enough of us who have set us down in that same position with the hopes of answering that one question, so you don't have to struggle the same way. So that maybe there's a clearer picture one day. If not for you, let's hope it's there for your kids. Because if most of you who watch this already have kids, it's one thing being lied to yourself. Are you cool with your kids being lied to? Is that all right with you? Them being misled, them being diverted down a path that's incorrect, that stops them from understanding this world and what it really is, prevents them from having the clear view? Because it's not cool with me at all. I have racked my brain for 4 years strong before I ever made another video to help narrow this down. I hope you appreciate it. If not, I'm sure in the comment box, those of you who are still skeptics, those of you that do not see the point in the truth coming out, even though it's to your own benefit, I could have been stubborn and kept it to myself. I could have been the only one watching and let everybody else fall right off that cliff. Because I don't know you, just like you don't know me. But the one human decency, the one common thread that we have, is that we are all in this together. There is no escape. So what I would have befall you could very well swing around to befall me. So the next time you question somebody in search of the truth, you want to call them stupid, you want to call them retarded, you want to call them whatever names you want to come up with, keep it in mind that not knowing the truth might very well come to bite you in your ass. Enjoy.
The theory of a surrogate civilization. What if we have become a surrogate civilization and our world is being used for the creation of another, a new civilization who from the very beginning will know the very best of our technological achievements? And so the need and desire of those who run this world to control all of us within it can best be understood in these terms. The world as we know it and all of the people within it have for some time now been used as a labor force in order to fund and supply the elite's secret endeavor, and we are expected to continue to supply and fund its growth for as long as they are able to fool us into doing so, because it is no longer important for them to prevent this world from an eventual cataclysm or catastrophe, but rather it serves their need to do away with us once our purpose has been served and their objectives have been realized, which means that if we wait until that point to start realizing that the world around us is indeed a lie and that we were deceived, then it will be too late for even our awakening as a people to prevent what we will have allowed to befall us. Meanwhile, they will have the time to have either left or be leaving to inherit a more technologically advanced new world and civilization, one with a new origin story that has absolutely no cultural ties to our own, nor does it have the differences that divide us. And that is the point of their end game. And reaching that goal has been the motivation of all of their lives up to this point. So you must pause for a moment to consider that their probes into this world and efforts undertaken towards exploring the furthest and most difficult to reach places in our known/unknown world were for them, once those secrets were understood, a quite literal step up in evolution. A point at which a decision was made, not for disclosure, but instead in favor of discovery discreetly. And it would be that singular decision, once made and committed to, that would forever change the landscape of the world as we know it. Their success thriving off of our chaos, disorder, division, and conflict to push forward and propel both industry and technology in the hyperdrive in order to fuel and fund the new world they are creating away from all of us. The most ambitious escape plan to have ever been conceived or attempted, rationalized and accepted in secret among the elite as the new answer for the continuation of a new mankind, a 22nd century reboot of humanity. This time, the point must be made that the elite's ultimate success is almost completely dependent upon our civilization's eventual destruction, and that only in the aftermath of that destruction will their agenda be fully realized in order for that new civilization to take center stage. This is why the condition of our world seems to no longer matter, hint, as if taking care of this one is of no concern. It's because they have found another. They know it will never fall in their lap, but we as a people do not seem to understand that it is going to fall in ours. Even as I write this, our world is being stripped in mind of every fathomable resource that one could imagine, leaving us without the very building blocks necessary for us to stop what is happening, let alone what it will take to come back from the future that they have in store for us. It is important to know that while this concept that I am presenting to you may indeed sound brand new, it is actually based on a much older doctrine and method utilized during times of conquest from as far back as you may care to research. The best recent example being the Europeans' so-called discovery of a new world and how it became the United States of America as we know it. This method and how it specifically applies to the discovery and acquisition of new territories, whether known or unknown, but without an officially recognized claim, is more simply known today as settle first or development first. But let me pause for a moment to say that this is a well-known concept for the highest officials within the most powerful governments of countries today. It is also a method rarely, if ever, disclosed or discussed in private or public with any country's citizens for very good reason. First and foremost being that no country wants to ever have to admit to or acknowledge its own wrongdoing. There is no room that needs to be made for explanation for any actions taken during a time as long as the topic at hand remains officially unacknowledged. Settle first is a method used specifically as it pertains to new territories that basically states that in the process of acquiring a new territory, a nation can, regardless of native inhabitants, cost to plant or animal life, or any negative effects upon that territory's land, its natural resources, or people, use force or any other means that it deems necessary in order to put in place a permanent settlement, prove its sovereignty, and state its rightful claim upon the land borders, as well as any national resources that it may contain. As long as that new territory and its native inhabitants do not hold nor have ever made an officially recognized land state claim that proves ownership or sovereignty, meaning that whatever nation is able to take over that territory with the intent to settle that land and control its borders will be considered that new territory's sovereign owner and shall be officially recognized as its rightful claim holder due to its continual occupation, control, and peaceful display of sovereignty over it. Period. And this should sound familiar because it is the basic framework and technique used by the first European settlers during their conquest for America. It also explains the reason for killing, displacing, and enslaving the native aborigines that were occupying North America long before their arrival. This includes the rewriting of those native cultures' history, birthplace, and other important factors of their culture in order to avoid any future claim that could be made by those natives once the takeover was completed, thus making America itself a topic that has always been shrouded and built upon its own deceptions, cover-ups, and lies from the very start of its conception. Having used its structure of government, willingness to deceive, questionable practices, and advancements in technology against everyone and everything that has ever stood in the way of its agenda. Not only back then, but stretching across time all the way up to what we find ourselves facing now in the present day regarding our own government. And into the future, it is poised to continue on. And it should come as no surprise to learn that the method of settle first has been brought up again recently and identified by several groups of academics as the number one out of 5 possible methods that America is most likely to use in the foreseeable future to remain dominant and to keep superior control over the Arctic and its resources, which should cause my fellow researchers to pause for a moment when I explain that the acquisition of any new territory discovered within international waters are governed by even less requirements or oversight than new territories on land, as well as my explanation regarding the settle first method and how it could possibly apply to the Arctic, or more specifically to what we have been told is just the Arctic ice sheet, because it really is time to start questioning what we have been led to believe. Case in point being that all the way up into the 1700s and dating back before the 1500s, many of the world's most sophisticated seafaring and map-making cultures were acutely aware of the continent that was split by 4 rivers and encircled by mountain ranges, a spiritual place that contained a magnetic mountain at its center called Mount Meru, that just so happens to have been located exactly where we are told that only the Arctic ice sheet exists today. The purpose of this video is to answer the question of why would they lie to us about the globe model of Earth? And why not tell us its true shape if indeed it was flat? Why would they lie? And indeed, it's a good question. A question, in fact, that deserves an answer regardless of its complexity. So now that I have laid the basic foundation upon which the answer lies, let me continue. After 4 years and countless hours of research and cross-referencing, the most probable and statistically founded reasoning based upon all of the lessons learned from the past, including the first documented conquests ever recorded by man all the way up to the last, ending with America and then America's fight for independence, before then turning its sight towards becoming the world's strongest superpower, it is safe to say that this country is perhaps the most well-versed in history when it comes down to getting whatever it chooses to set its sights upon, and will stop at nothing in order to achieve its goals for the elite. The evolution of America goes way beyond even that which we are able to see, and it's there that this picture becomes even more in focus once you can piece together America's MO, or mode of operandi. I can remember my late father used to tell me to use my eyes, not my mouth, and went on to explain that the most advantageous position for a man is when, by choice, a man decides to keep what he knows, what he sees, and all that he has learned to himself. For as long as he is able to remain silent, no one will know what he is thinking, nor what actions that he may choose to take, which ultimately forces his opposition to underestimate him and or overlook his true abilities and agendas, which in turn causes them, the opposition, to error and expose themselves, thus leaving themselves vulnerable to that which they do not have reason to see as a threat. So true to form, the longer a man can keep what he knows to himself, the more of a threat and the more in control he actually becomes. And with that being understood, let me point out that America's evolution has taken that logic much further than any man, light years further in fact, to encompass all foreign and domestic people, including all government. America has developed tactics like the telling of things in reverse, and has been gradually implementing them on a scale never before seen in all of mankind. That began with the lessons learned through conquest, that were then merged with and cultivated right alongside of the lessons learned through the manipulation and influence placed upon all early forms of written print, communication, and media, continuing on through radio and television broadcasts, until when, in 1969, it learned the most valuable lesson on how it could use the development and creation of film and its subsequent broadcasts across television networks to fool an entire world into believing whatever narrative it chose to portray, like the moon landing, which was the defining moment whereby it learned how to manipulate human consciousness into believing whatever version of reality that it wanted people to believe or accept. Pandora's box had been opened, and from that point on it has been used to shape, by way of design, our understanding of the world, its shape, and everything in it, choosing to, by whatever means necessary, settle first our minds before any other understanding could take hold, fully knowing that any recollection of information up to that point, past to present, would eventually be drowned out by their new present to future approach to the flow of information. Discounting the past in exchange for what was taught and shown to be true in the present, painting pictures in our mind knowing that it would be conveyed to the future, thereby solidifying their control over it. The same future that we now find ourselves in, trying to understand what we are up against, which given the level of technology today, it's safe to say, has been consistently evolving. So to take a page out of their own book, It is what we must do as well. We must evolve as a species. It is time to manifest our collective destiny before they finish doing it for us, because the stage has already been set, made even more scary when you realize, within the context of what I'm saying, how many of the world's religions could be used against us. For example, they could create the Bible's book of Revelation, knowing the effects that it would have, and it's been drilled into our minds for many years. Fertile ground to grow belief, the perfect ground for a diversion, the perfect cover story to mask their action. Also the perfect opportunity to use something such as the rapture theme to snatch up people to take back to their new civilization for purposes unknown. And the only thing crazier than that sound, or how that sound, would be for it to actually happen. So keep that in mind as I continue. To recap the methods that are or have been used against us: knowledge of past conquests, rewriting of history and its effects upon people, the manipulation of all forms of media, the portrayal of the world around us differently than now it actually is, as well as our place in it. But what is missing, and how is it the most relevant factor? What is missing is what is not spoken of. It is what has been masked and continues to be kept from us, and that is what has been learned from the ancients, their knowledge base, those who came long before us, those responsible for the pyramids and all ancient impossibly built structures. For it is that knowledge that has driven the elite to such ends and continues to push their agenda. Second is the information that they have learned regarding the true shape of our world and how everything else fits in it. Third is the technologies acquired that have been kept from us by way of design in order to control us, while at the same time using those technologies to obtain what is thought to be the unobtainable. A pursuit so grand that most would not believe it, which I can completely understand due to the difficulties that I've faced during the process that it has taken me to even be able to conceive it myself. And I am fully aware of its implications, to which I have one thing to say: the truth is more often stranger than fiction. Now it is time for me to substantiate my position by laying out a few breadcrumbs that have helped to bring me to where we find ourselves now. Number one, what does the globe view of our world accomplish? It visually encapsulates the world as we know it, and it effectively places a self-imposed understanding that there is a limit to what we know and what we know to exist. It makes us believe that all land has been discovered and prevents us from going out in pursuit to find more. It visually reinforces a finite boundary and lessens our urge to explore beyond it, leaving only our imagination to ponder space the way it has been portrayed to us. The never-ending movie of possibilities that lay beyond that is reinforced solely by NASA, film studios, and education, which is enough for us to look past the fact that there are no actual pictures and even fewer humans for us to interact with who have actually been or experienced space for themselves. Second, how do those views play out in their favor? Because once they are believed and accepted, then passed down as truth, few would ever choose to think different. And that buys them time and provides a cover story that they can exploit, such as NASA's budget being used to fund their true agendas. Case in point being the fact that the majority of NASA's budget has been proven to be spent on terrestrial Earth and land-based studies. Listen to what I'm saying. A space agency that spends their space budget almost entirely on land-based studies since 1958 to 2018. That is 60 years, yet they claim to know space. But do they really? Approximately 663 billion, 71 million is what NASA has spent in the last 60 years. Understand that each billion is 1,000 million, and there's 663 of them in this figure. Again, I say that NASA was created as a diversion to draw our attention away from the Antarctic ice ring, or the land that was found beyond it, for a list of reasons, including the preservation of the Copernican theory and the globe model of Earth, astrology, evolution, you name it, but none more important than just to keep what they had found secret. Space and all of the other sciences that hinge upon its beliefs became mandatory education, a safety mechanism against future discovery of what they had done. Let me continue. because space and how it has been portrayed has allowed them through visual aids and media to use our imaginations against us. So vast in its size and its content that our minds are kept busy conceiving an infinite number of space possibilities, hook, line, and sinker for the fishermen of man's mind. And they just keep throwing it out there because they know we're biting. And it's no different than a drug for which they've built a hunger or yearning for, knowing that we will be back, appetites ready and willing to believe what only they have to offer, space, even though it's all just a magic show and their sleight of hand is rehearsed. NASA is insulated by corporate interests and industry due to their own culpability that comes with being an accomplice. Whether it's the corporate interests that profit and portray or industries that provide, they are all in it together, and this is how it happened. Once corporate interests and industry realized what NASA was doing, most likely a result of knowing the tolerances of what they were subcontracted by NASA to provide, and asking questions when NASA's claims went beyond those known tolerances or capabilities, both corporate interests and industry realized that they had become complicit in NASA's deception and would be looked upon as an accomplice. So a deal was made. A mutually beneficial agreement was reached. Consider this, if you will. Imagine if you were an industry or corporation and you discovered a way to shoot off a rocket claiming that it was carrying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of satellite and technology equipment, but instead pocketing that money completely off record while claiming on record that it had been spent. Wouldn't you do it just like NASA had been doing it before you had discovered that it was a hustle? Now consider how many satellites have been launched into space or lost, and you will begin to see the full extent and reasoning for portraying the fraud, and also how everyone else is involved, hint film industry and the tie that binds them, which may also explain why after so many years NASA stopped and decided to subcontract it out before they were found out, hence SpaceX, creating what is known as plausible deniability. And with that being said, allow me to refer back to the past in order to stitch together a much clearer picture. The first man to have ever been given or allowed to have the complete first-hand knowledge and information regarding the true form and shape of our world was named Richard Evelyn Byrd, born in 1888 to one of the first founding families of Virginia, who in 1926, just 23 years after the Wright brothers invented and flew the first airplane, was contracted and financed by none other than automobile heir Edsel Ford and oil heir John D. Rockefeller to be the first person to ever fly to the North Pole and back, a flight that remains shrouded in controversy. And after a time of being out due to injury, Richard E. Byrd was appointed to head an expedition to Antarctica in 1929, followed by 1934 and 40. In 41, he went on to fight in World War II, during which time, in 1943, to be exact, the atom bomb was created, ending his service after the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the war was won in 1945. 1945 also being when the United Nations was created. The following year of 1946, he was requested to mount one of the largest expeditions to have ever sailed once again back to Antarctica as Operation High Jump, where he successfully mapped over 1.5 million square miles of Antarctica using aerial photography. Also to note that in 1946 marked the first successful launch by the Americans of the V-2 rocket number 13 that brought back photos taken from space, October 24th, 1946. The official record states that 1947 marked Admiral Byrd's last active service date, and that soon after he retired. However, this is where it gets interesting, because in 1947 was also the year that Roswell took place. 1947 is also the year that IMF, the International Monetary Fund, began. 1947 was when the sound barrier was broken at a little over 767 miles per hour, or Mach 1. The USA's Truman Doctrine, Marshall Plan, and National Security Act of 1947, which led to the National Security Council, or NSC, and then the CIA being established in the same year, just in time for the beginning of the Cold War. From 1947 to 1955, many other events are documented and further help to reveal their master plan's true size and scope. And I encourage anybody and everybody to go fit a timeline within the context of what I'm saying and see how it substantiates this theory. Oddly enough, in 1955 to 56, Admiral Byrd was asked out of retirement once again to command another Antarctic expedition called Operation deep freeze. Noteworthy to mention, during Admiral Byrd's life, there were only 2 places left to explore in the known world, and both Arctic and Antarctic were given to him over the course of his life, with space not being considered a realistic possibility until 1957, the same year as his death. All first-hand knowledge and information taken to the grave, and thus silenced just in time for the space race to start, and in 1958, NASA's creation. After Byrd's death, all further knowledge and explorations were strictly controlled and compartmentalized, never allowing any one person to know all of the pieces. And by 1959, the U.S. brought out the Antarctic Treaty, signed by 12 countries on December 1st, which was really a control mechanism, clearly stating that no person or nation would be allowed to ever build a permanent settlement upon the continent, thereby preventing any future nation from being able to claim sovereignty over any perceived claim, which is the reverse of the settle first method, a way to secure it without drawing attention or conflict to the continent, giving each nation its own space for non-invasive research, while at the same time placing limits upon the amount of fuel and resources that they could bring onto the shore to limit the range of how far they would be able to travel, effectively cutting off what they had found from anyone ever reaching it. And as far as the Arctic was concerned, they knew what was there and that they were much more technologically advanced than us, so they monitored and limited air traffic and put in place the DEW line, distant early warning, which became operational in 1957, the same year as Byrd's death. And after closing off both the Arctic and Antarctic, the upper atmospheric nuclear tests reached their peak during 1961 and 62, which were used to measure and map out the limits of the heavens, or the dome that is above us, and having the last piece of the puzzle so they would have a more complete picture of what they needed to hide, as well as what limitations they would have to work within. All attention was turned to space to occupy our minds, with very little attention being given to either the Antarctic or the Arctic until 1996, when the Arctic Council was formed and the Ottawa Declaration was signed by 8 countries, 34 years later, after the 1959 Antarctic Treaty was first signed. Here's another hint or breadcrumb. Ask yourself, if the globe model was correct and the majority of land sits above the equator, then why did 12 nations sign the Antarctic Treaty in 1957, but only 8 nations signed the Ottawa Declaration for the Arctic in 1996, 34 years later? It is my contention that as a result of Admiral Byrd and the discoveries that he made, the true form of our world, as well as what was beyond it, became for the U.S. what we know as the final frontier. However, a choice had to be made and a direction decided. So going back to the settle first method, it was agreed at the highest levels of military and government to hide the truth from the world and its people, so that it could prevent anyone else from interfering, questioning, or challenging its efforts until it was able to investigate, explore, and also lay claim to whatever it was able to find first. This time spinning the settle first mythology around to mean by any means necessary, by including us, regardless of any negative effects that it could have upon its own people, land, or its resources, choosing to use any and all things at its disposal in order to further their agenda for mankind. However, it seems that whatever they found was so great that it was decided that it would be in their best interest to mislead the world rather than to disclose their findings, as well as their efforts, including the reasonings behind how and why so many resources were used. And that is how and why NASA and space were created, to become a cover story drawing attention away from their true tasks, while funneling all of the funding and resources they could ever need to complete their mission, using space as a metaphor for what was already taking place past the ice boundaries of our known world. This is the only conclusion that best explains all of the many unanswered questions that many of you have been asking. For example, why the sun simulator was created and has been seen being tested in our skies. Not only that, but the fact that we have found the patent. It could in fact be for a land beyond the reach of our sun's light, to be used as either a supplemental or secondary or even a primary light source to mimic the cycle of our sun here, in order to produce crops there in a normal or expedited growth time span. But this is just one out of many things that have remained out of place and unexplained. It is my hope that once my theory of the surrogate civilization is heard, that it will spark both believers and skeptics alike to do further research to answer the questions for which up to now we could not find answers to due to our lack of proper context. In closing, the Kardashev scale is space-based, and therefore it is incorrect Think space within the dome instead of outside the dome for a better understanding. We are considered to be a type O civilization. They are trying to leapfrog the world we know by creating a type 1 civilization. It is their new world. The New World Order is the place that we occupy as a resource under their new world. We are being used as the energy and material source for their new world. Every lie has been designed to keep us from figuring it out, to keep us unaware and unsuspecting for as long as possible. They know that the only way to succeed will be to engineer our destruction, because if we ever found out what they had done, they would lose control of us forever.
No. Tell us about that.
Well, they used light beams to measure whether the Earth was moving, and they found that there was no movement. The Earth has to be moving 30 kilometers per second to complete its annual revolution. And they found out that it wasn't moving in a very precise. Michelson could have calculated it to 1/100th of what he got in his experiment. That's how sensitive his instruments were.
What did the experiment involve in terms of apparatus, so we can get a concrete understanding of
well,
what they
if
found?
if the Earth is moving around the sun, and we shoot that light beam in the direction that the Earth is moving, okay, and then we shoot another light beam perpendicular to that, well, the one that's in the direction of the Earth's movement should be impeded in some way if it's moving through space, whereas this one that's going perpendicular would not be impeded.
Why not?
Because it's not going through space. It's just going north and south.
Okay.
Okay? And what they found, they expected to have a 30-kilometer difference between these two light beams. There was no difference. So the natural interpretation, and even Einstein admits this, Mach admits this, Born admits this, the natural interpretation is that the Earth isn't moving. So how do we get out of that? Well, you invent special relativity. And now you say, well, the reason that light beam wasn't affected when it went toward the motion of the Earth is because the apparatus shortened.
Huh?
Yeah, Michelson's apparatus shortened as it was going with the Earth in its orbit around the sun.
No, wait, you're telling me that the contraction of mass was invented to explain away the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment?
Yes, and that's what my book will tell you, and it's been admitted by all the scientists.
Well, isn't there any experimental confirmation that as you approach the speed of light, there's a contraction effect? The impression is that there's all kinds of experimental confirmation.
That was invented. There's no proof to it.
Really?
Yes, all the physicists will tell you there's no proof
Not
to
that
it.
I'm surprised, you understand.
Yeah.
I know what the scientific community is capable of in terms of mass deception. Evolution is a mass deception. But I wasn't aware that they don't really have any even purported scientific confirmation in terms of physical measurement.
No, nobody
of the contraction effect.
Nobody measured a contraction. But they put it into a mathematical formula called the Lorentz transform, and it's probably the most famous equation used in physics today.
Does anyone expressly admit that, hey, we had to come up with this contraction effect because otherwise we're stuck with a motionless
Yes,
Earth?
the very guy who invented it.
Tell me what
Heinrich
he
Lorentz.
admitted.
Heinrich Lorentz says, I don't have any other explanation to this experiment of Michelson-Morley unless I contract the apparatus. Otherwise, we're going to have to believe the Earth is standing still in space.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can you give an approximate page reference for me for your book? I want to go back and read that right away.
I'll send you an email. I'll show you.
Everything is moving. In other words, all the stars in the universe are moving. How could we possibly determine if we are the center of this moving universe?
Over the past decade or so, we have seen out to the very limits of the observable cosmos. We've mapped its largest structure, the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe according to the standard Big Bang model of cosmology. What we have discovered is shocking.
On the very largest scales, we see a pattern of really big hot and cold spots which line up around a special axis, which has been dubbed the axis of evil. And that's quite puzzling. Why is there a special direction in space?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you asked that, because in 2009 they set up a probe called the Planck probe. It just came back with the results in 2013 in March. I don't know if you heard about it or not.
No.
The European Space Agency set it up in cooperation with NASA. This was the third attempt that they had to nullify the data that they were finding in the cosmic microwave background radiation that permeates the whole universe, that the Earth was in the center of the universe. The first one they sent up was in 1990 called the COBE probe. It came back, showed the Earth was in the center. The WMAP was the second one in 2001, came back with the same data. And what they tried to do was say that this was all an error. It was some kind of misreading, or it was there was contamination in the apparatus or the sky or whatever. So they sent up a third probe in 2009, just came back in 2013. Guess what? Same exact results. Same exact results. And what were the interpretations? Well, the Earth has to be in the center of the universe. And we have somebody quoted in our book, Lawrence Krauss of the Arizona State University, who says, yeah, this means we're in the center of the universe.
Let's pick up on that point a bit. You mentioned that the background radiation, microwave radiation in the universe, supplied data from which it became apparent that the Earth was in fact at the center of a moving universe. Explain why that is so. Why do these data confirm that?
Okay. Well, the Big Bang Theory predicts that there was an explosion 13.7 billion years ago. Okay? So if there was an explosion, then that means the explosion had to come out equal on all sides of the sphere. It had to be what they call homogeneous. Okay? And that's naturally accepted. It's like homogenized milk.
Sure.
You know, you shake that thing up and you can't see one place from another place. It's all homogenized. And that's what they needed for this Big Bang universe. What they found when they sent these three probes up, yeah, some of it was homogeneous, but it's like having a bowl full of Jell-O with two swords going through the middle of the Jell-O.
What are the swords?
The swords are the orientation of the cosmic microwave background radiation throughout the universe.
And what do you mean by the orientation?
Okay, there's hot and cold spots they found. It's not homogeneous. There's hot and cold spots in this microwave background radiation, and if you align all these cold spots, it forms an X through the whole universe.
Unbelievable.
And guess what's in the middle?
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
This is what the data show.
This is what the data
shows. Okay,
come on
now. What mainstream publication recognizes
The
this?
University of Michigan, Dragon Hutterer, Craig Copey, Glenn Starkman. These are all the guys who have done all the work on this microwave radiation. They write it in their papers. They wrote one in 2004, 2008, 2010, and 2012, and they're writing another one on the Planck probe.
So you're saying these space probes were designed to explain away the X represented by the hot and cold spots?
They wanted to make sure it wasn't an accident.
Okay, so there were how many probes in total?
3 in 20 years.
And you're saying that all 3 confirmed what then?
That the Earth is in the center of the universe.
On the basis of the hot and cold spots?
Yes.
Whose alignment represents an X.
An X.
And at the center of the X is the Earth.
Right, and they call that X the axis of evil. That was coined...
Scientists call that the axis of evil.
Called it the axis of evil. That was coined in 2004 when Bush went into Iraq. Remember, he called them the axis of evil? So this cosmologist just picked it up and said, yeah, well, here's the axis of evil right here in the universe.
So, in other words, they're enraged by the finding.
Oh, yeah.
Because it upsets their worldview, which has to displace the Earth's special position in the universe.
Yeah.
Which fits in rather nicely with a divinely created universe.
Right.
Made for man.
All of cosmology is based on what we call the Copernican principle. Every piece of data that they get in their telescope has to be filtered through the Copernican principle. And that's what the Big Bang Theory does, NASA does it, ESA does it, everybody does it. The upsetting thing about this microwave radiation is it just totally defies the Copernican principle.
The last probe confirmed that as well, you say?
The last probe, yeah. As a matter of fact,
where was that result reported? Obviously everywhere, but give me some examples.
March 21st in the European Space Agency report. As a matter of fact, it's in our movie.
What's their attempt to explain the latest probe's findings away?
Anomalies.
Anomalies?
Mm-hmm.
And all the anomalies conveniently line up in a non-anomalous way to verify their model.
Right.
This is amazing. So this brings us to the question of motive. You've been hinting at it throughout the discussion. There's obviously a motive at work here. Many people have recognized, not just believers, not just Catholics, but people like David Berlinski, for example, that science has become an ideology. Maybe you could take up that theme as we close out this interview.
Yeah.
Isn't there an ideological component?
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say it's a religion. Science is a religion today. It's scientism. And they've already got the parameters within which they want to interpret the data, and they're not going to go outside those parameters. This is a perfect example. You do get some of them that break out of it, And they say, yeah, well, this defies the Copernican principle. We've read many papers like that, and we quote them in our book. Okay? But the motivation is, if the Copernican principle is wrong, that means all of science is wrong. Everything, cosmogony, paleontology, cosmology, archaeology, everything now becomes suspect because we can't support these long ages. We can't support this vast universe. As a matter of fact, we're in the center of it. How does that happen? Well, it's not going to happen by chance. Someone had to put it there, you see, and that's what they're scared of. That's the motivation.
Research Don Pettit, The Tyranny of the Rocket Equation.
Tyranny of the rocket equation.
It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Today I want to talk about perspective. Perspective has several different definitions, and today I want to focus on all of them. The first type of perspective is perspective in art. It is the art of drawing solid objects on a two-dimensional surface so as to give the right impression of their height, their width, their depth, and position in relation to each other when viewed from a particular point. So it's a picture drawn in perspective, especially one appearing to enlarge or extend the actual space or to give the effect of distance. Most of us have had a basic art class, and one of the first things you learn in art is to make something realistic, you first have to consider the object of focus and their correct size in relation to distance. If you paint a picture with the wrong perspective, it's not going to make any sense. Unless, of course, you're doing it deliberately to obscure someone's perspective or to make them think outside of the box. So an artist like M.C. Escher is a great example of that. But what about real perspective? What about the way that we see things in the real world? How did our experience with basic art teach us to make things real? One of the first things you learn in art is how to draw 3D buildings. You learn perspective. You learn that the perspective of the human eye always forms a triangle with the horizon. You learn the further away an object is from you, the smaller that object appears in relation to the world around you. You learn that the horizon always holds the key to where those angles intersect. If you can intersect the angles with the horizon line, you could draw a street or a railroad track that disappears into the distance. So the first kind of perspective in art, is what gave us our ability to develop our own worldview. It is what allowed us to really pay attention to the world and to view things the way they are through our own eyes. Now, you might say that I'm dwelling on the flat earth, but this to me is truly the most important subject that I have covered. All I'm asking you to do is to watch the video with an open mind and allow yourself to see things as they are. And that brings us to the second definition of perspective, which is a view or a prospect. Just as art teaches us how to formulate our own worldview, the sights, the sounds, and the environment around us can mold our perspective and really take away our ability to think for ourselves. Your perspective of the world that you live in has been molded in you from the time that you were born. All you've ever seen of our world is in the form of a globe. It's in logos, it's on billboards, it's in classrooms. Everywhere you look, you see it. The globe in all of its splendor. In an ever-present course around the sun and through the universe, the globe, a magnificent testimony to the Big Bang and evolution, as well as unexplained forces like dark matter and dark energy, or the mysterious ever-present weak force of gravity. A ghostly principle that cannot be observed or proven, but is accepted as truth and taught as truth in every school. Gravity as a theory exists to explain how you and I can be standing on a spinning ball in space. Gravity as a theory exists to explain why even though water always finds a perfect level, it's able to stick to a curved surface while rivers are able to flow and water always flows downhill to the lowest point and settles level. Gravity exists as a theory to explain why we are in a perfect yet elliptical orbit around the sun. Gravity exists as a theory to explain why we have the tides. Why does an apple fall from a tree? The truth is, if the Earth were not a sphere, if it were a mostly flat surface with hills and mountains like what we see around us, none of these theories could ever be accurate. And people ask me, why would the governments of the world keep it a secret? This isn't talking about just uprooting the multi-billion-dollar budgets of space exploration. It's about uprooting the $1 trillion a year budget or more of the scientific establishment as a whole. Think about how much money we spend every year on studying evolution. Think about how much money is spent studying dark matter and dark energy. I mean, how many super colliders actually exist in the world? How many of those colliders are funded partially or solely by taxpayer money? If the Earth is somewhat flat and motionless, the entire scientific establishment comes crashing down, and with it, trillions of dollars in unnecessary ways. While they're lining their pockets with your hard-earned money, they're teaching your kids in school that the Creator is foolishness. There's a reason that the scientific establishment has an established view. And the scientific establishment is not based on true science. It's a method of control. It's a method to keep you grounded. I'm not going to go into it in this video, but keep you grounded is very literal. They don't want you to know the nature of the world that you live in, because if you knew that you lived on a mostly flat and motionless Earth with the firmament and a very literal dome covering the sky, it means that you didn't evolve. It means that the scripture is accurate in its view of creation and you were fearfully and wonderfully made. It would make us realize how significant and special the Earth really is. Think about climate change. Carbon dioxide is essential to life on this plane. It's a key component of the air that you breathe. Plants cannot live without carbon dioxide. You cannot live without carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is essential to life. Now, the scientific establishment and the companies that profit from their agenda are wanting to make carbon dioxide a crime. So to make up for you being alive, you're going to have to pay a tax on the air that you breathe. Not only that, but they're buying up all the water. And they're telling you that water's in short supply, so they can charge you a premium for that water in the future. This inevitability has always been the goal of those who gain power and control. People are motivated by power when money is not enough. When you achieve a certain point of financial success, having more money doesn't mean anything. You could have a lot less money and still have everything that you ever wanted. Power becomes the rush. Power over other people is what drives the human being that achieves ultimate power and control. And the ultimate goal of individuals with power is to control all of the people. It's to make the world a slave, even if the intentions are to be a good master. The point is this: the whole of the scientific establishment is built on a false premise. The scientific establishment wants you to believe that there is no God. They want you to believe that there is no hope, that you're an accident, so you might as well live it up. Don't worry about morality because it's relative. They want you to believe that God is a joke. According to the scripture, the creation is a direct result of the Word of God. Out of all of the things in the Bible, creation is one of the things that come as a direct result of His Word. The Ten Commandments are another example of the direct result of the Word of God. The Bible tells us to believe on the name of the Son of God. John chapter 1 tells us, in the beginning was the Word of God, and the Word of God was made flesh. This Word was Jesus Christ. So what does it mean to believe upon the name of Jesus Christ? Revelation 19, beginning with verse 11 says, "And I saw heaven open, and behold a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with the vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God." Now, here it says that the resurrected Christ in heaven has a name that no one knows, but that his name is still called the Word of God. So the final definition of perspective is the perspective of photography and the difference between photography and the perspective of the human eye. We can gain a unique perspective of the world with the way that we see things, but a photograph doesn't lie. A photo can only see what is. One of the things I remember learning very young in school was being able to tell that the Earth was a sphere because I could watch the boats go over the horizon. I think it was around 5th grade when I learned about Columbus in a real historical way, instead of just as a children's story. And one of the things that I clearly remember that was pointed out about the story of Columbus is that Columbus knew the Earth was a sphere because he too could watch the ships go over the horizon. Thanks to modern technology, we have the ability to capture the horizon with amazing zoom lenses. And we're discovering that boats never go over the horizon. As a matter of fact, boats get further away until they become so small that you can't see them even with the zoom lens. The boats float higher and higher above the surface of the water, forming a mirror line. This mirror line is a trick of the eyes because you're no longer able to perceive the ocean floor. You can only see the floor out to the horizon line. And beyond that, it becomes invisible because the horizon, just as in basic art, forms a point, which is why objects on the water appear to rise further up beyond the water the further away they get. The point is this: you never see a boat go over the curve of the earth. So somebody might say, but Chris, if you have a really big telescope, you could watch the boat go all the way across the ocean. When you understand the way that a telescope works, you understand that you can only magnify visible light. So beyond about 60 miles, it's usually impossible to perceive anything because of atmospheric distortion. There's water vapor in the atmosphere, and this water vapor acts like a lens. The further away an object gets, the thicker the lens and the more the object distorts. Having a bigger telescope is not going to solve the problem. The distortion exists because of the atmosphere. It exists because of the water vapor. So a telescope is only going to be able to magnify the distortion, and eventually it's going to pixelate. You would never be able to see cities from across the ocean because the cities would be the size of an atom, almost literally. It would be like using a telescope to look at an ant in your neighbor's driveway across the street. The ant is too small and the telescope can only magnify visible light. The ant would be invisible from across the street, just as an entire city or a country would be invisible from across the ocean. The argument that seeing ships go over the horizon proves a sphere Earth falls flat on its face with observation. Perspective is what causes ships to disappear over the horizon because of scale. Ships don't go over the horizon because if they did, the horizon itself would be curved. If you're living on a sphere, the Earth just doesn't curve away from you. That would mean you're living on a cylinder and not a sphere. The Earth should curve down and away from you in all directions, which means the horizon itself should curve. How far can you see across the horizon in a plane? Not to the horizon, but across the horizon. You could see at least 1,000 miles from end to end if you're at 35,000 feet. The diameter of the Earth is only 12,000 miles. Why in the heck would you not see a substantial curve on the horizon itself if you're in a plane? You should see a curve that allows you to look down over where the horizon should be into empty space. That isn't what we observe though. Our perspective has a lot to do with the way that we perceive the world that we live in, and I want to continue talking about it. NASA forgets to consider perspective when creating images of the Earth. If you don't know it by now, all of the NASA images are created by artists. None of the so-called NASA photos are actual pictures. And I'm not saying that NASA is not in low Earth orbit. They've never been beyond low Earth orbit. They cannot get a real picture from a million miles out. They failed to consider in this picture that the moon is 250,000 miles closer to the satellite. That is a quarter of the distance. If the satellite were to zoom in on the Earth when the moon was between the Earth and the satellite, even though the moon is smaller, the moon would match the Earth's size. It would be much, much larger in the picture than it is. So in closing today's video, I want to do a thought experiment. I want you to imagine a clock in the sky above your head. The motion of the clock represents the motion of the Earth. Imagine the hands of the clock spinning the opposite way, so they're spinning counterclockwise. If you're in the northern hemisphere, this is the motion in the sky if you're looking at Polaris. Now I want you to imagine the hands of that clock extending up and over the horizon. Look to the south. Is the clock still spinning counterclockwise? Look west. Is the clock still spinning counterclockwise? The only way I can perceive an opposite or a clockwise motion of the clock moving counterclockwise in the sky is if I were to rise above the clock and look at it from upside down. The only reason people in the southern hemisphere supposedly see the sky rotating clockwise is because they're supposedly standing upside down on a ball, which means that I shouldn't be able to detect this motion from the northern hemisphere because the only motion is the motion of the Earth. So how could I possibly perceive that motion if I'm standing on the top of a ball? The fact that I can see the motion means the southern hemisphere is not upside down. If the southern hemisphere were upside down and the motion in the sky of the southern hemisphere was actually clockwise instead of counterclockwise, which is exactly what we see in the southern hemisphere from the northern hemisphere, the sky would rotate counterclockwise south of the equator just as it does in the northern hemisphere, and we would have never had this discussion. If the sky is spinning, the sky is actually spinning counterclockwise. But if you're standing upside down on a ball, the sky appears to rotate clockwise because you're standing upside down. If the sky is rotating clockwise and you're standing upside down, the sky would appear to rotate counterclockwise. And visually, you could make it work both ways for those of you who are able to think about these things. But the point I'm making is that there are two motions in the sky. And if there are two motions in the sky, the Earth is not spinning. The fact that I can see the two motions in the sky is what led me to believe that the Earth is flat and motionless. I can see the perspective of someone in the southern hemisphere from the northern hemisphere. So there is no need, due to the motion of the sky, for the southern hemisphere to be turned upside down, because they see exactly what I see from the north. And it's the reason why every ancient culture believed the Earth was flat and motionless. Even the Sumerians, who were able to map out the position of all of the planets, including Pluto, were able to determine that the Earth was flat and motionless. This is a very important conversation that needs to continue to take place, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. I am going to continue to cover the Mandela effect and other things. There are other things that are going on in the world that I want to talk about as well, but I don't believe the flat Earth is something that should be overlooked.
Here we are again, the man on a quest to find the truth and show what's going on with the truth movement. Let's talk about the campaign on the truth movement. Seems more important right now. Instead of accepting that we found out the truth, they would rather build a campaign to try to make us all look crazy. That the reality that we experience, they're saying, is not the reality we experience. They're saying, due to perspective and science and physics, we don't know what we're looking at. Do you feel like you can't see what you're seeing? And let's talk about how all the FE groups have been conquered and taken over by ball believers. This is to you, ball believers. If you know Earth is not flat, what are you doing in the groups? Why does the globe need defending if it's 100% confirmed? This should have been known 500 years ago. But here we are in 2018 defending the globe. You should feel pretty stupid defending something that you don't care about or that you know is ridiculous. It's like arguing with an idiot. It makes no sense. And the one question all of you seem to come with, I don't know if it's copy or paste, if you're all friends, your defense for everything is, show us a picture of the edge. Even though you believe that the universe is ever expanding and there is no edge of the universe, but when it comes to flat Earth, your concept is that it has an edge. Well, let me tell you this. We don't live on a planet, we're not a spinning ball in space, and flat Earth does not have an edge. We do not know the depths of our reality because it's been kept hidden from us. This is not disputed. So for all you people that believe, yeah, the government lies, but they wouldn't lie about the shape of the Earth, why wouldn't they? Do you understand that Universal Movies has been showing a globe before they had planes that could go up that high and see if what they said we lived on is what we lived on? I'll say it again. Universal Movies has been showing that spinning globe as the logo before their movies since before they had planes to go up that high and see if what we lived on is what we lived on. And everybody just accepted it. So the lie just continued. And this is what you're defending right now. But let's talk about planes. Because you can't have it both ways, Globers. You can't say that, yeah, a plane can take off the ground, defying gravity, but when it gets to its cruising altitude, it is supposedly held by gravity so that it does not fly off out into space. That is what we call doublethink. And any ounce of intelligence would tell you that when a plane is flying straight around a spherical surface, it would have to dip its nose to account for that curvature to complete the circle. Or else the artificial horizon would tell them that the surface was moving ever away and down from them. So they would have to account. If we lived on the elusive ball, but we don't live on the elusive ball. We live on a flat world, okay? Stop fighting against intelligence. FE is trying to show you every day and let you know that you've been lied to for over 500 years. And they're going to continue to lie to you for the next 500 years if you don't accept this right now. Just accept it. And I love all the great work that all the FEers are doing. Too many people to name. I can't name you all. But keep it up. Because even though there's a campaign on putting us out, they're repressing posts, repressing comments. This is supposed to be freedom of speech. It doesn't seem pretty free. I feel like they're trying to put us in a box. But it's too late. The truth is out. People are waking up. There's nothing you can do about it right now. The holders of the lie and the gatekeepers, they don't even have to defend their pseudoscience bullshit. They have all you globe believers to defend it for them, without no personal experience yourself, other than textbooks. Now, every single textbook I ever saw, science book, okay, I never saw a real picture of space. Did you? No, you didn't. So you're defending memes. But you have a problem with flat earthers putting proof in memes or using memes as proof. You've been looking at memes all your life and you're defending them. So when you see memes from us, now you get triggered. Stop getting triggered. Stay out the flat earth groups. Because if you know it's not flat, then you shouldn't have to defend anything. If it's ridiculous, why are you wasting all your time and energy and attention on it? This is what you need to ask yourself. Don't research flat earth. Research the globe and the ridiculous theories of the globe. Here's something to look into. You think you're spinning 1,000 miles an hour? And you watch the sun move through the sky slowly through the day? If you believe that we're going around the sun and the sun is not revolving above our heads like flat earthers know the sun is and it's small and close, then you should understand that the sun would look like a ring of fire going all around, but it's not. It stays there and moves through the sky slowly all day. But you will still defend the spin. It's retarded to say, oh, we've just got used to the spin since birth because we've been constantly spinning. Did you forget there's something in our inner ear that tells us when we're in motion and what direction we are? If we're horizontal, that thing in our inner ear tells us. If we're moving, that thing in our inner ear tells us. If we're upside down, that thing in our ear tells us. So stop fighting against your intelligence and common sense if you have some. Just because they told you this is what it is, don't accept it. Look into it. Investigate it. Because truth fears no investigation. This video is for the groups. All my FE people, keep up the beautiful work. Let's keep this stuff going because they're getting desperate. There's a campaign to stomp us out and repress us, but it's not going to do anything to us. Insults and calling us retards is not going to do anything to sway us from this. It's too late. We went to the same school systems you did. Stop trying to teach us globe theory a second time. We know it already. That's how we know there's something wrong with it. It's too late. People are waking up. People are coming into the truth. Elon Musk, he put the nail in the coffin, making you believe there's a car in space and telling you that in less than 23 hours, it had already passed Mars orbit and it was on its way to the asteroid belt. Really? Did they forget they told us that it took the satellite Juno over 3 months to get to Mars? But within 23 hours, a car had passed Mars. If you can't wake up from that, there might not be too much hope for you. You can learn more from flat earthers than you ever learned in your entire school history. We know more about the globe than you. You want to know something about the globe? Ask a flat earther. And on that note, have a good day. And Globe believers, stay out the groups. You just won't accept you're getting ate up. You're getting ate up.
We're going to make sure that this one's going to be clear as hell. You want to talk about religion? Let's talk about space religion. Outer space religion. You've got, in China, you've got groups. And in India, you've got groups. In the United States, you've got groups saying, hey, listen, we've got rockets. We've been out in the outer space fields. We know everything that's going on. We landed on the moon. We landed on the moon back in the 60s. We landed on the damn moon. But back in 2015, they have a big report saying we've got certain devices that we send up there. And we found out a new impenetrable field called the New Van Allen radiation belt. We can't penetrate it for nothing. Not much higher than our satellites, but you can only get so high. We hit a plateau. It's an impenetrable field. We can't get past it. But we somehow 50 years ago, using Wile E. Coyote and an Acme rocket, we landed on the fucking moon. You see, here's the problem again. I always say, the lies start in the homes. The lies, they start in the offices. The lies, they start in the departments. And the problem is the lies get worldwide. You've got medias and schools to help promote the lies, and people fall for it. Why will what you call your science academics of space research, call it NASA, call it what you will in China or India, because China landed on the sun, don't forget. And India, they've also made it to the moon too, but nobody can get past the impenetrable field called the New Van Allen radiation belt, but yet they sell you your shit. And I'll tell you something straight. Here's the catch. What would happen if they all of a sudden told the human race, okay, listen, we sent rockets up there, and on those rockets, we've got another set of aircraft that from there, they jet pack it to a certain level that is impenetrable. Not a single molecule can make it through that field. Not a single atom will make it to that field. What would happen if they told the human race, okay, wait a minute, there's another problem too. The sun and the stars, all those beautiful, those big bright lights, they disappear below our vessels. Because they've already admitted, they made it clear. Once we get to a certain level, it becomes a matter of immense darkness. Pure darkness. There is no sunlight. There is no stars. They've had meetings on this. They've shared this information quietly amongst each other. They've put it out there that they can't get past the impenetrable field, but yet somehow they landed on a sun or a moon. You see, it's about the fairy tale. See, humans live with fairy tales. We don't want to hear truth. It's boring. We want to hear a fairy tale. We land on the sun. We land on the moon. We've got an idea. You see, we land on the sun. Here's your science application. They teach you in schools. If we were to shoot a rocket at the sun, it would deteriorate before it hit the sun's corona because the sun's so hot, it would melt every metal piece of that rocket. It would become atomized. Okay, so nothing physical can enter the sun. Then how can the sun be fucking physical? How can you land on a sun? You fucking moron. How the hell do you land on a moon when you can't get past the new impenetrable field from just last year alone? How did you do that 50 years ago? I'm going to tell you what it is. The fucking lies start from the beginning. They don't stop till the end. It reaches sky high. It makes it worldwide. There was an old famous line. Very simple. It's an adage. It's a line, whatever you want to call it. It says, very simple. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth even gets a chance to get its pants on. That's reality of your planet. You make up lies on the smallest levels, you embellish them to the highest levels, and you sell the shit. What would happen if every school and media finally said tomorrow, the truth? The sun, the moon, and the stars, these luminaries, they exist in the highest Earth atmosphere field. They exist within your own realm. There is no universe, there is no galaxies, there is no solar systems. It's a bunch of bullshit. What if they told you all those stars that we call them planets? Well, from more recent observations, we're starting to realize these are actually ancient telescopes. They're ancient satellites. What would happen to the mentality of humans who have been watching movie blockbusters like Star Wars and Star Trek and the rest of the We've Traveled the Universe movies? What would happen in every school? What would happen when everybody started to realize your existence is inside of a terrarium and those lights exist within your own atmospheres? What would happen? Well, that would change everything now, wouldn't it? Because every human wouldn't trust their schools, their medias, their governments. They wouldn't trust their NASAs and the rest of the space research institutes. Hell, they wouldn't trust anything of any science institute, would they? And should they? Because every scientist, what they do is they get a blackboard and they got a big fucking fractal equation and go, do you understand this? And people go, I think I make believe. I believe I understand this. Good. You're going to get a passing grade. Those of you who question it, you failed. The whole objective in school is to be able to say, I agree with whatever you say. You move forward. If you can memorize and repeat the bullshit, you move forward. If you question it, you need to get into another class. That's how the world works. Sell the bullshit, accept the bullshit, you move forward. Sell the bullshit, don't accept the bullshit, move it backward because you're a threat to the bullshit. And that bullshit makes a lot of money for a lot of people. Fucking reality. Let me say this straight and clear. I'm going to say, because I get irritable every goddamn time I do one of these little snippets. I get pissed off. I really do. I get really fucking pissed off with the monody and how you lie about everything, how you fucking covet bullshit. And yet, you suppress truism. Anything true, you've got to suppress. It'll hurt your ego. It'll puncture your poor little ears. Oh my God, pull the goddamn blanket off your eyes for 1 second so you can see reality without those rose-colored glasses. And you're screaming, put the blanket above. I want to go eat a Big Mac at McDonald's because that's more safer for me. You're chicken shit cowards, every one of you, to know the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is what you can't handle. Your earth has 3 parallel fields. You're walking on it. You're swimming on the lowest field. And it's parallel, which means it's flat. The clouds that you see above your head making the rain, the snow, the thunder, and the rest of it, and the wind, they run flat. They go across a parallel. Your star clusters, your sun and your moon, that follow a similar formation every damn night, every single day, they go on a flat parallel field. They ain't outside the Earth atmosphere. Your sun, your moon, and stars are inside your atmosphere. So your NASA's and all the rest of these space research centers in India and China and the rest of them, they're liars. They don't want to give the truth out for one reason. Because you just decimated Hollywood blockbusters. You just decimated every school. You just decimated the trust and the integrity of every scientific academia institute across the fucking world because you just realized the Earth is truly a flat field of three parallel fields surrounded by spheres. You better get it. People go, well, the sun and the moon, when they rise and they go down and they're setting, they look massive. But they go so teeny weeny when they're up there. But they get really big when they're low, when they're starting to rise. Well, go to a football game or a hockey game, take a pair of binoculars and do the same damn effect. It's the spheres that surround you that create the 3D illusion, the realism of what you call 3Dism, a spherical world. If your world was a fucking circle, for Christ's sake, and some people were upside down and there was a big magic metal magnet in the middle, it would suck every ship into the ocean, it would suck every building into the fucking goddamn ground. That power of that fucking gravity. Let's talk about gravity, the gravity of lies. The gravity of lies. This is the gravity of lies. Don't buck the institution. Because you don't make a buck bucking the institution. You get fucking broke bucking the institution. Because the institution is about selling shit. It never has been about selling truth because if we expose the truth, they expose the raw nerves, corruption, injustice, control, every factor humans hate. And that they will retaliate against and rebel against. Ask the outlaw. I gotta live it. I don't just talk it, I live it. I live the code. I don't fuck around. Let me say something straight. Next time you hear, we got asteroids coming through the fields. Bullshit. Those ain't no asteroids. When you hear comets coming in, well, the comets seem to originate from the same fucking star cluster. Coincidence. How about your meteor showers? From the same sets of star clusters? Like a fucking goddamn map is laid out? It's inside your Earth atmosphere. Get it through your stupid head. Anybody who's got a different, you want to disagree with the flat Earth, or you want to disagree with fucking what I'm saying about the luminaries being inside your Earth atmosphere, go fuck yourself and shut your anus because you're a stupid fucking fool. You can't prove anything otherwise because all you've got is, well, we got scientists who have proven time and time again that there's a concentrical fashion of the stars' alignment, and you just ignore the star spirals when people take elongated pictures and film the stars spinning because the truth we need to just ignore it. Shut your fucking anus. You don't know fuck all about your fucking astronomy up there. If you say that this Earth is not fucking made of flat parallel fields, 3 of them, and that it ain't surrounded by spheres that fucking give you the illusion of a big sun and moon, you're a fucking idiot. And you ain't being worth being listened to no more than those fucking retards at NASA that gotta go, okay, let's kibosh the truth here because if people know there's an immense field of darkness up there beyond those luminaries and that there's an impenetrable field that they can't breach, they're fucked. They're fucked. No more are they worth listening to. Their fucking bullshit about landing on the moon just got exposed. Their bullshit about landing on the sun got exposed. Their bullshit about galaxies, fucking solar systems, and universes is bullshit. Everybody be fucking smoking or whatever they do, the DMT molecule, the fucking spirit molecule, because that's the closest thing you're going to get to leaving this fucking universe, brother. Game over.